Buckle up, Buttercup, because today's guest is Tonya Wollum, founder of Water Prairie and the fearless host of the Water Prairie Chronicles. This woman isn't just talking disability parents talk. She's lived it. She's navigated the hurricane of IEP meetings, invisible diagnoses, and heart-wrenching school systems. And now she's carving a path through the chaos with her No BS resource hub that's packed with IEP coaching, a resource goldmine blog, sensory and learning tools, and the most heartfelt storytelling podcast out there. Tonya's mantra: empower families, celebrate uniqueness, and let's be real, that's the war cry every ADHD parent needs to hear today. Her Water Prairie Chronicles airs every week, serving up validation, advocacy tips, and oh my god, so that's normal comfort in 30 minutes flat. Mini episodes deep and still dropping truth bombs parents didn't even know we needed. So why should our ADHD parent listeners be all ears right now? Well, for starters, it's IEP diagnosis season. Plus, Tonya's the IEP whisperer, turning legal jargon into parent power moves and no cape required. She lends the voice of true belonging for anyone tired of feeling like the only one in the room with the chaos card. Her tools, realistic. Her stories, tender and tough. Her energy, exactly the kind of caffeine-fueled hope your little ADHD heart craves. Trust me, this ish is going to feel like someone finally handed you the map to navigate the system and gave you a high five for making it this far. Let's welcome Tonya to the mic. Tonya, welcome to Chaos and Caffeine.
Thank you. I appreciate being here. This has been something I've been looking forward to for a while now.
Me too. ADHD and sickness always has my calendar less linear than I would appreciate.
Same here.
So I am a sucker for a good origin story, and I would love to know what brought you to IEP coaching.
So that question I'm not usually asked. I'm usually asked why I call my business Water Prairie, and they're both connected together.
I'll take both.
So I'll just explain it all. How's that?
Yeah.
Storytelling is always fun, right?
Mm-hmm.
So both of my kids, they're in their early 20s now. They both have disabilities. And so when my daughter was born, around 4 weeks, we noticed that her eyes were not behaving the way that it seemed. I remember going into the pediatrician for that 1 month visit and asking, why does my child look deranged, was the word that I used. Mm. And he's thinking, first time mom, you're just overreacting. Everything's fine. She's just interested in what's down at her feet right now. She had what's called sunset eyes. So her eyes, you could just see the top half of her iris.
Oh, wow.
So it looked like she was looking down all the time. Mm. And a baby usually doesn't do that. And she didn't at birth, but in those 4 weeks, we were seeing changes. Gotcha. So photos of that time of life look kind of a little strange at times. And it was about, I remember challenging him, just watch her for the next 10 minutes. And in 10 minutes, he was on the phone. We were up in Massachusetts at the time, calling Boston Children's Hospital. He was concerned that she may have a brain tumor, and which can cause sunset eyes. He couldn't get her into neurology, so we took the next best and got her into the ophthalmology department, which was exactly where she needed to be because it was a visual problem, not a brain tumor problem. Mm. And so it took about a year and a half to get a full diagnosis, but Emily has albinism, and that was the beginning of nystagmus for her. I don't know if you're familiar with eye conditions or not. Mm-hmm. Nystagmus is a drifting of the eye back and forth. Sometimes they'll move fast, sometimes slow. We called it dancing eyes when she was little, just because they move around. At 24 now, it's a pretty steady beat that's there, but it means that her brain is constantly having to retrack what's there. So it does affect your vision. A year and a half later, we also found that she has albinism. So that was preventing the back of her eye from fully forming. Mm. So it affects, she has what's called low vision. So she's not legally blind. She's under the 2200 range, but she does have a visual impairment. And so we jumped all in, got the help that she needed, early intervention. And I called the local school to talk to their vision teachers because I had no idea how do you get at this point, an 8-month-old, when we got her first glasses, to not eat the glasses, but to wear them.
Yeah.
And so that was my call then. So Emily was pretty cut and dry. It was a physical disability. We knew we needed help. And there's a path that's easier to follow as you're looking for help in that way. Christopher, my son, was born 22 months after Emily was, and was just a happy little kid, followed along whatever we're doing. And even as an educator myself, I wasn't teaching, but I had the background as an educator. I was starting to see signs of what might be a learning disability with him, but I didn't know what it was. And so for him in kindergarten, his was the seat that exploded and all the other kids had their stuff neat. So, those telltale signs that a lot of your listeners probably can relate to.
Yeah.
But the um the AG teacher was already pulling him out of class to go with the third graders because of his conversation abilities. So he wasn't being flagged for anything because he was ahead of his peers. He wasn't reading, he wasn't writing. We got into first grade, still wasn't reading, still wasn't writing. And so I called a team meeting because I knew with Emily how the IEP process went. And we had we got as far as the initial evaluation, and the entire team said it looks like dyslexia. In North Carolina, dyslexia is not considered a disability. He's too far ahead of his class, so there's nothing we can do. So they canceled the IEP. Question. Second grade around, called another team meeting. He's starting to read because I'm working with them every day now, and he's writing his letters backwards. He's, some of those classic dyslexia signs were there. Still explodes everywhere that he goes, and just, a heart on his sleeve, just a very emotional kid, but just a loving kid, nothing standing out that's wrong, but you can see it as a parent. And again, your audience knows this. And so it took to third grade, the third time we called an IEP team meeting, still the same answer every time. He's still 2 years ahead of his peers. We can do nothing. We recognize that dyslexia is here, but there's nothing we can do. It's not holding him back. Excuse me. By then, he had learned how to use context clues to fill in the blanks where he didn't know what a word was. And so because he was ahead mentally in some ways, and he was the youngest one in his class, so it was kind of a hard disconnect there to put together. But we went to private testing and found that he also had dysgraphia. That got him the IEP support that he needed. So with him, in third grade, we had the dysgraphia now diagnosed. Dyslexia kind of went by the wayside because it really wasn't a big issue for him, but the dysgraphia definitely was. And anxiety was what they had termed it. But they said, we're not sure if it's ADHD, but it definitely is anxiety. So seventh grade, we went back to the same testing site, because the school still wasn't helping us with what I was seeing as executive functioning skills were falling behind. And so then it was a classic ADHD diagnosis. In 10th grade, we had a teacher call us and ask, have you ever considered narcolepsy for Christopher? He's standing right now, taking a test. He's writing scribbles all over his paper. His eyes are open, but I can guarantee he's asleep right now. And so we took him in for testing, and yes, he has narcolepsy too. So he has this bundle of invisible disabilities that anyone calls misunderstanding with adults in his life. And all that anxiety was coming from all this misunderstanding and these constant battles. And so when I decided in 2022 to start a podcast for parents, I wanted to remember that we're focusing on not just the parent and the child who has a disability, but also the whole family. And Christopher is what kept coming behind. He was missed. There were things that he had to miss out on because of therapies that we had with Emily, but he also missed out on those early diagnoses that we would have seen sooner and fought more for had we really realized what were going on. But we were so distracted by his sister that we missed some of that stuff. So Water Prairie is the name of my business. And it's because when he was little, between the dysgraphia and dyslexia and all, he heard the term hydroplane and immediately connected hydro with water and playing with the prairies and the fields in the Midwest. And so his Christopherism, as we called it, for hydroplaning was Water Prairie. And so that's just my reminder every time I see the business name to remember it's more than just that direct relationship with the parent and the child with a diagnosed disability. There's often a family behind those two people that I'm also trying to support and to help. And so this past year, I was thinking back through how much I've learned in 20 some years combined between the two kids in learning to navigate the IEP process myself, how many friends I've helped do ghostwriting letters so that their emotion is out of the letter when they write to the school, helping them to understand what to expect at the IEP table. I decided to go ahead and make the jump and make it an official part of Water Prairie. So IEP coaching has just jumped in 2025 as part of what Water Prairie is. So a long answer, but you know the full backstory now.
No, I love that. Thank you for one, sharing your story and being vulnerable, but two, I constantly need the reminder that it's our job to advocate.
Yes.
You
yes.
said part of your training is to take that emotion out of the letters, but you had 3 failed attempts to get your son the help that he needed. So it's kind of hard for my mama bear not to jump out. You know,
it is hard, and emotion doesn't help us any when we go in. Sometimes it does. I would always take my kids' photos into the IEP meeting and put their photo on the table because I knew we needed to stay focused on him or her, because at this point they both are on IEPs. But I didn't have time for the team to tell me how cute my daughter was in her hair bows. We needed to talk about the business of the IEP. And during pickup at school, they could tell me about how cute her bows were, you know, and I know everybody's had those situations. You go in the first 10 minutes of the meeting are all these compliments of how great your child is. You know how great your child is. You want to make sure you get to assignment or to the conflict that's happening.
So very quickly, may I share a pretty similar story for my son?
Yes.
I actually thought he had dyslexia because his reading skills were not progressing in a way that I thought they should. So I go in for 3 years. I'm like, I think he has dyslexia. I think he has some learning disability for reading. And they kept reassuring me that it wasn't. And then on a very off chance, we started occupational therapy for handwriting. And she realized that he had saccadic eye muscle weaknesses. So his eyes do the jumping, but not in a rhythm and not in a pattern. And it was something that I clearly had never heard of. His principal had actually never heard of it. And so we spent this past year getting his 504 plan to what we needed. And it was really a research, kind of like a trial and error thing, you know, for us to find what worked. But they finally got him on the large font and his scores came up 105 points.
Wow.
And I was blown away. But I think there's a couple of things in there, and the major thing is don't give up. I knew something was wrong, but I didn't know what it was, and we just kept going until we found it.
When I feel like that's a big piece that I bring to parents is I am an outside of the box thinker. That's just who I am. ADHD is not an official diagnosis for me, but I know that I have it, and so it does make it easier sometimes. But with Christopher, how we resolved all those conflicts through the years was I went back and took classes at times specifically to understand ADHD. And that's where my focus is, because sometimes it's that little tweak and an accommodation that opens the world for them. And the biggest thing that I tell teachers all the time is don't jump to conclusions. You're going to see behaviors that you're going to assume are just mischief. 9 times out of 10, they're not mischief. This is their interpretation of what they think is right. And I mean, I don't know how many times I would go in middle school with my son and in school suspension. They wouldn't even call me anymore. Because I was teaching at the school at the time. They wouldn't even let me know. He would stop by my room on his way to go see what he called his second mom as he was going down the in-school suspension. He's like, I threw away the paper at the wrong time again. You know, and that was the only thing he could think of.
Is your next step on the ADHD parenting journey treatment, but you're feeling a little apprehensive? You, my friend, are not alone. So many of us want options that are science-backed and parent-approved. Meet Dr. Richard Bowles, geneticist, ADHD dad, and creator of NeuroNeeds. When his own son was struggling, he created a powerful, all-natural supplement that helped his son get off stimulant meds completely and thrive all the way to college. It's called Neuro Needs, and it's packed with exactly what ADHD brains need to function, focus, and regulate without the side effects. If you're curious, hit the link in the show notes to check it out. And don't forget to sign up for our newsletter while you're there, because right now, Neuro Needs is doing us a solid by giving away a free brain bundle, and all you have to do to be considered is to sign up for the newsletter. Because you deserve science you can trust and support you can feel.
But it would be things like he would see the classic story on this one that I always go back to is he was in the science room in 7th grade, and there was a laptop computer sitting on the counter, the work counter right beside the sink. And they had a substitute. This entire year, 7th grade, he had no science or social studies teacher. They had subs the entire year. So no one knew the kids. And so the laptop's sitting there, and some kid across the room turned on the water and just left it running. And he could see the laptop teetering. So from across the room, he jumps up for no reason that the teacher could tell, runs across the room and turns off the water. And so she sends him down to in-school suspension because he got out of his seat. No one ever asked him, why did you get out of your seat?
Yeah.
And when I asked him that night, he explained the whole story to me. And the teacher said, oh yeah, there was a laptop over there, but we didn't think that was connected to it. It's like, well, ask the question, not what were you thinking, but just out of curiosity, what were you thinking when you got up out of your seat?
Yeah.
And parents, we do the same thing. We make assumptions. We know this. We know our kids are wired differently, but we still yell at them. We still, get all over their case because they didn't come to dinner when we called them. Well, we never gave them a warning that they needed to break that connection with where they were. And I say this from experience, because how many times have I apologized to my son through the years for drawing unfair conclusions about him?
Yeah. So my son has anxiety, and it really comes from what you said. For him, it was the constant redirection.
Yeah.
From whatever he was doing to what he should have been doing or how he should have been doing it. And since we started treatment, that has really went away. But that hurt my feelings that you said that your son deals with that too, because I think that's a really widespread issue.
Oh, yeah.
Our kids on the spectrum.
I mean, think about it. If you are always being corrected, how does that affect you?
Yeah.
And we're talking about from a young age. This isn't just an adult going into their first job and being corrected all the time. We'd be anxious in that situation.
Yeah.
But, you're always, quote, making mistakes. And you don't know why. You don't know what did you do wrong. I can remember 3rd grade with Christopher actually, after we got the diagnosis and had him on IEP, he had his first male teacher that year. And, a little boy having a male teacher, he was so excited that year because he was finally going to have a man to lead him.
Yeah.
It was the worst situation he ever had been in. And so this man years later told me even then that Chris was just into mischief all the time. There was never really a problem, and dysgraphia really wasn't a thing. He was just pretending. This was even years later. And but he would now, I don't, are you familiar with dysgraphia at all?
I am not really, and I think I was going to ask you to dive deep into that because I think you're the first guest on the podcast that has brought that up. So whenever you have time, or if you're ready now.
In what I consider the dyslexia range, you have dyslexia, which most people are familiar with. You have dysgraphia, which is a written form of that. So basically, you're looking at something and you're able to understand what you look at, but whenever you interpret it to your writing, there's a disconnect there. So for Christopher at this point, he would read the word problems on the board because this teacher was his math teacher. And then he was to write it on paper. And he would write phonetically on paper what he had just read. So the words didn't match. If you could read phonetically, it made perfect sense. But if you didn't, it was just a stream of characters. So you had to kind of isolate what you saw as blends and all to understand what he was writing. And he had no separation in 3rd grade of his words. So it was just a constant stream of characters. I think it affects different people different ways, but it is a written form. So trying to organize sentences, paragraphs, topics, it's really hard. So graphic organizers are a big piece of accommodations for someone with dysgraphia. You also have dyscalculia. Have you heard that one?
I've not.
So that's a mathematical form of dyslexia. So it deals with the numbers and that. So you may run across someone who is, because a lot of our kids have multiple disabilities.
Yeah.
ADHD is just a piece of it, but many of them have other learning disabilities that go along with that. So you may run into others with these, and your listeners may have someone who, if they haven't been diagnosed, if they're younger, they may be leading into one of these. So as you hear
Yeah.
these words, it's not anything that they can't overcome. It's just they need some accommodations to work with that. So Christopher
Yeah.
now, as a college student, writes phenomenal papers, but he does still need structure help. And so he will, what we call, regurgitate all of his information and then he'll go back and try to break it into clumps and all. So he does still work with someone to help him with his writing structure. And
Okay.
Grammarly is a great tool for him for computer typing.
Yeah.
Dictation is good and typing is good. It's the handwriting that's harder for him. But this teacher would rip his paper up in front of the class and tell him, you don't spell pizza like that. Start over again. And so he was being shamed every day in school. And so this 8-year-old would come home and he would tell me, I made my teacher mad again today. And this was like every day. So then I, as the parent, am talking through with him, let's explain everything that's happening because I'm not in the classroom. I can't see what's happening. But he's such a sensitive kid that he could describe everything that happened to me. And so he would talk about going out into the hallway and he would start crying. And then his teacher would get mad because he's crying now. But that shows that anxiety that our kids are showing. Not all of our kids can express their emotions. I just
Yeah.
had one who was able to put it into words for me. And so that's why, they're bottling this up because they learn pretty early to stop showing that emotion, especially if their teacher's mad every time they cry. And get upset. And I think
Yeah.
anxiety is a big one that our teachers overlook the importance of dealing with it. They think that they're just whiners or they're just, the girls are too emotional. They're just, but it's real. They need
Yeah.
to, and if we can teach them how to talk through those emotions and how to describe them without the tears, it helps. But
Yeah.
in the moment, I don't know about you, I can't stop the tears. If they're there, they're there. You got to get them out.
Yeah.
And our younger kids, boys and girls, are going to cry. That's the easiest way to get rid of that emotion so that they can now come back in with their peers and sit back down again. So
Yeah.
learning to bottle that up does cause a lot of anxiety. And we see it as parents, it starts coming out in different ways. It may be an outburst, it may be a tantrum. It has to come out somehow.
Yeah. I think I needed that reminder today, as usual. So I will talk forever, but I do want our listeners to know the process of what you could help them with, or maybe even how they find you to begin with.
So the first thing that I would do is do just a free 15-minute call with me. We can talk about, and I have a form that you fill out when you do that, where you would put like your top 3 concerns or questions, because then we can talk together and decide, am I a good fit for you? If I'm not, I am part of the Master IEP Coach Network, and I have other coaches around the country that I meet with every week who I could find someone who does fit better with you. So I could help you get connected with someone if I don't feel like I'm really the right fit for you. I don't pretend to have all the answers at all. But what I offer to you is I'm coming in as an experienced mama who has walked in your shoes. Ghostwriting is a big piece of what I do. The just helping you to get those questions to the teachers and to the IEP team. And sometimes it's just a teacher communication. You just need someone just to kind of write it for you. I'm not going to ever mail anything for you. I'm going to send you that letter and let you tweak it and send it yourself. But you haven't had to write it from scratch by doing that.
Yeah.
Though the way that I set up, if I do work with someone, I sell my services in blocks of 3 hours. And it might be that we do 10 minutes at a time here and there. So it might last you 2 years before you get through those 3 hours. Or it might be 1 year if you have a really rough year and we're going through a lot of meetings. I typically don't go to an IEP meeting with you. And that's because if you come in with an advocate with you, sometimes the team is going to be more resistant because they're not going to talk to you, they're going to talk to me. And I want you to be the one that's talking to your team. You have that connection because the whole goal is you're going to work with me for a time, but then you're on your feet now and you're ready to go. and you're not going to have to worry about it, especially our ADHD parents, because once we get kind of our feet down and we know, okay, these accommodations are good, it might be 5 years before you have questions again. So you don't need this ongoing support. You just need to kind of get balanced and to get going. Another thing that I can do too is before an IEP meeting, if you do have a team that's hard to work with, we can kind of role play through Zoom and get you ready for what questions do you want to ask? How do you redirect the team back if you need to? Things like that. And I'm sure a lot of people have been in those situations and just need that 15-minute call. Maybe all that they need is just someone just to say, okay, you're on the right track. You're doing fine. You do not need to hire anybody to help you with this.
Yeah.
So I am on my website at waterprairie.com. From the homepage, there's a coaching link you can go to, and that'll spell all of this out for you. I also have a free course that's there, and it's called the IEP Power Moves Workshop. And that's one that anyone can log into and take the course. It walks you through just 3 tips that you could use in your next meeting to help you prepare and to get the most out of that meeting. So that might be a good first step, even just to kind of see my personality, to see whether my teaching style is something you'd want to work with.
Okay.
So I'm all about giving away as much as I can, but I do have to actually pay the bills too. So.
Yeah. And these parents would be parents who have questions about an upcoming IEP meeting, or is it possible that they come to you asking, do we need one?
Yes.
Would you help
yes.
them all the way through it?
I can help you get started. If you have parents that are not in an IEP or a 504 already, you can, as a parent, you have the right to ask that, but you have to put it in writing. So this will be your free tip right here. Your time starts as soon as you send an actual written notice to the school, and it can be to your teacher, it can be to your principal, it can be to your counselor, but you are requesting that your child be evaluated for an IEP. And once that letter goes, it's now an official document, and the time starts ticking at that point. Now, you and I are both in North Carolina. Every state has a different time, but federal law gives them a maximum amount of time, and most states are a little bit less than that. We're at the end of the school year right now, summertime actually. And so you're looking at the fall, but you could even start that process this summer, get it to the right person so that the clock starts before the school year begins. And then you'd have an initial meeting with them just to find out what's going on. And then they have a certain amount of time to conduct any evaluations during that time. So, but no, I can walk you through that process easily, and can partner with you to even get everything started.
I have so many more questions, but I think I would be missing an opportunity because you come with a unique perspective of seeing that something was there before the IEP meeting. Do you have any tips for parents who kind of feel like there's something going on, but maybe they're missing something, or what they should be looking for?
Well, my first advice to every parent is go with your gut. You're going to see things. You know your child more than anyone else does. You're going to see that they go into school and they're fine. Maybe they're in preschool right now. They're fine for that 3 to 5 hours. But when they come home, now you're starting to see the wear and tear of staying focused during all that time. Some of the best advice that I was given for my daughter. Now, my daughter, for all points and purposes, does have ADHD. She was the 3-year-old who had taught herself to read and could sit with a first grade workbook and go cover to cover. Her hyper focus was off the charts. But we have never pursued an official diagnosis for her. So she's at 24, she knows, there are sensory issues. Some of it intertwines with her vision as well. But anyways, for her, when she was in the 4-year-old preschool, because she had early intervention at 3, she went in and had preschool early. She would be fine. She was like the teacher's pet. She did great in school. I would pick her up at the lunchtime break, and she would see me and just go into full meltdown mode day after day. And I'm literally dragging the screaming child just to get her into the car so I can get her home, knowing that every parent out there thinks I'm the worst parent in the world. And poor little Christopher's just holding my hand, walking behind us,
Yeah.
When I said he took a back seat, he did take a back seat for a while. but we were in Pennsylvania at this point. I called back to Massachusetts to the Perkins School for the Blind. I had a mentor there who had worked with us once a week when she was in the infant program. And I explained to her what was happening. And she said, all right, so stop and think about this. She's visually impaired. So she's having to spend 100% of her energy to isolate all the bright colors in this preschool classroom, to know where her teacher is, to find where that toy is that she knows is across the room that she wants to get to find her friend with a colorful curtain right behind her that she can't isolate there. So her focus and intensity of all of her energy is spent in those 3 hours, and she's exhausted by the time you pick her up. And I'd say the same thing for our kids with ADHD. And especially if your listeners have younger kids, again, we don't know what other learning disability they might be dealing with that hasn't really manifested yet. But they're starting their day fresh. They're going into school. They're spending their time with the fun of their friends and the excitement of the classroom and all this learning, but they're exhausted because they've had to spend more energy to sit still in their seat, to not fidget because they don't want the teacher to tell them to stop fidgeting,
Yeah.
But we get them at home and now they're safe and they let it all out. And so the school may not be seeing it yet, but so trust your gut, ask questions, ask the pediatrician, document. The biggest piece I can give you is document everything. And it might just be a journal that you're keeping so that whenever you do write this letter, you're going to have some facts that you can go back to. When you do talk to the doctor, you have some facts that you can go to and say, no, this isn't just a one-day thing. Over the last 10 days, 7 of those days, this has happened every single day. And and you're going to start picking up on things. So your biggest piece is document it all, and trust your own instincts, because you aren't just a worried mama. You know that there's a way to get relief for your child.
When you're parenting a child with ADHD or executive function challenges, there is no simple manual. It's hard to know, am I supporting or enabling? How do I set boundaries that build independence and accountability? How do I create consequences that teach and not just punish? World-renowned ADHD specialist Cindy Goldrich is a mental health counselor and founder of PTS Coaching. Cindy and her team of expert coaches teach strategies grounded in brain science and delivered with deep compassion. They help parents move from frustration and confusion to clarity and connection. Because ADHD isn't just about attention. It impacts motivation, emotional regulation, problem solving, and it affects the whole dang family. If you're ready to stop walking on eggshells and start building calm, connected relationships, reach out to ptscoaching.com or check them out in the show notes. If you've got a complex kid and want support that actually helps, this is a great place to start. I think that documentation point is key.
Yes.
Because sometimes we are so caught up in daily life that we don't recognize the pattern until we see it day by day.
And we forget.
And then,
because I don't know about you, when the kids were little, I can remember with Emily especially, because some of it might have been those early vision things that were happening. But when we were trying to teach her to sleep through the night, it was hard. I don't know about you, but it's hard to hear your baby cry. and I think even more so for mama, because I was nursing at the time, so it was even harder. But I would go into the kitchen and wash dishes. The warm water on my hands helped relax me. The sound of the water running drowned out the crying in the other room.
yeah.
And so I'd make myself stand there for like 20 minutes before I go and check on her again. But we can get into those self-soothing routines where, just go play in your room, and shut the door. So now you're isolated from it. But we don't remember. We've done that every day for the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And we don't have the energy sometimes to think back what was happening right before that happened. And if we can think of in that mindset, after the door shut and they're playing with their toys and yelling or whatever they want to do in there, sit down and write it. Like, what just happened just before that happened? Did you just come in the door from school? Did they just come back from Joey's house next door? something triggered that change, and it might just be exhaustion for a lot of it. But
Yeah.
when we're talking about school, we can't live in school in exhaustion. And this is where, with your son, the change in the font size, think about the relief he had. Just seeing that score change tells you how much relief he found from that. My daughter has, when she was in school, she would take her end of grade test, and she'd have these huge pages that were
Yeah.
like double, and she hated it because it takes so much energy on your neck to scan this huge paper.
Yeah.
But she could see it. So
Yeah.
and she just had books that she's turning because there were so many pages. But there's
Yeah.
no way she could have concentrated on a regular font size to take these tests, and as they get older, there's more material. So the
Yeah.
sooner we can find the little tweaks that they need to make life easier, the more empowered they're going to be as that middle schooler and high schooler and adult to say, I can do this. I'm a smart kid, but I need this so that I can do this.
Yeah.
And it's not a shortcut. It's actually more work a lot of times, but the relief that they get from that, and it builds that confidence in themselves to know there's nothing wrong with me. I just need a bigger print. That's all it is.
I have to share this part because I learned so much from my son. As usual, I'm always learning, and he's typically the teacher. But we had our last 504 meeting, and he is 10 now. So he's in fourth grade, into fourth grade. And the school counselor and the principal wanted to bring him into the meeting.
Yeah.
It was our first time. And I was like, I don't think he's ready for that. He's my baby. And I had told the principal that I didn't think that he was ready to be a part of it. And the school counselor did not get the transmission. So at the end of the meeting, he came in and he surprised me so much because he was able to advocate and specifically articulate why he thought the larger font would help.
Yeah.
And I was amazed. And I felt like a fool. I was like, man, maybe I held him back all of that time because he should have been in here
Yeah.
telling his side because he's the one that's actually going through it. So
Even if your child is not ready to advocate for themselves, I'm all for having them sitting at the meeting, because where I took a photo in, who can say anything at that meeting with that little child sitting there listening to what's happening? But the child needs to hear, not only is mama fighting for me, but my teachers care about me. We
yeah,
may have some stuff that happens, but they were there with my mom and they all agreed on this together. And so they could be coloring in the corner on a paper while you're having the discussion. No one's going to say anything inappropriate because they're there. So it does keep it
yeah,
there. You may have to redirect them back so that they're not talking about the child again, about their bows or their pretty coloring page. But that's fine. I think that's worth that few seconds of redirection if they're there. Not every child is ready for that. Sometimes they do need more, especially if they have a hard time sitting still for very long. It might be bringing them in at the end, like you were saying. And a lot of times these meetings are not at a time where the child can be pulled out of class. So it just depends on how that works. But I would highly recommend saying, let's have them come in for the first few minutes and then go into class, or come in if it's at the end of the school day, have them come after
yeah,
class gets out. They I think the benefit that you get from that, and the child seeing the team together and knowing that all these people care about me, and you as a parent can always say, so I can't talk today, Susie, all of your teachers are here because they all care about you. What teacher is going to not fix their tone of voice and everything else because you
yeah.
just said that? Parents, you have a lot of power in these meetings.
Now that you have said that part, I think I was holding him back because I thought it would make him feel more down on himself. Because I thought that he would interpret it as he picked up the I'm a bad kid
Yeah.
because of the redirection. So I thought that he would take that even a step further. I'm a bad kid, so they're having this meeting, but it probably would have been more along the lines of what you said. I'm not a bad kid, and there's 10 people here that care about
Right.
my future and success.
So I'll give you an example here. Again, storytelling. So Emily was 7, 8. She was 8 at the time, I think, and had been asking us for a while about learning Braille. Now, Emily's a large print reader. She's not blind. She's able to see the text and all. So the norm is you're not going to teach a child who has low vision to read Braille. You're going to teach them how to use magnification, things like that, which they were doing. But she came and asked us at home, can I learn Braille? How can I do this? So I took it to the team and said, well, actually I took it to her vision teacher and said, she'd like to learn Braille. And he told me, he said, I've been doing this for 20 years. A low vision student is not going to learn Braille. There's no way we're going to do this. And Emily kept asking. So I started talking to, I called around where I'm outside of Raleigh. So we had the School for the Blind here. So I connected with them, talked to some adults with low vision who had lost more vision as they aged, and asked them, when you were a child, would it have helped you if you had learned Braille before you needed it as an adult? And every single one of them said, I wish I had learned Braille when I was younger. So then I started researching, and of course, parents, we're going to do our homework, right? So I started researching the part of the brain, because Emily is 100% visual learner. And if she were to lose her vision, what's going to happen to her? Because she learns everything through sight. Even as the baby, she would bring the toy up straight to her nose and explore it all and then play with it. So just from day one has always shown me that. What I found is the part of the brain that interprets vision also interprets touch. It's the same part. So it makes perfect sense for her to learn Braille because her brain's going to interpret both in the same way. So if she were, because she's at high risk of losing her vision because of the way that her eye is formed. Any blow to the head could change things for her dramatically. And she understood this even as a young child. It's just, we didn't hide it from her. We didn't really tell her about it, but I think she had already kind of figured it out. And so we did start talking to her about it around middle school. But at 8, somehow she intuitively knew this was going to benefit her. So I had already talked to the vision teacher. He had said no. So we thought, all right, let's take Emily to the IEP meeting and let her ask the question. And he can tell her no in front of the team and explain why. So I had all my documentation ready. I just had pages ready to prove everything there. Emily had shared with her other teachers what she was going to be doing. So I went into the team meeting with Emily, and her PE teachers in there, her classroom teachers there, the guidance counselors there, the librarian is there. Every person who dealt with her in school was in this meeting. They weren't even part of the IEP as far as accommodations go. And her vision teacher comes in and he looks at this room full of people. And so Emily asked the question, can I learn Braille? And he looks around and it's like, he can't say no now because she has this full support behind her. I didn't have to say a thing. He said, we'll give it a month. I'll meet with you once a week for the next month, and then I'll decide. But then he told me on the way out, he said, she's not going to make it a month. She's going to stop. He called me a week later and he said, you are absolutely right. This child has to learn Braille. And so from 3rd grade until 12th grade, she had Braille studies as part of it. She's not a Braille reader. By the time she graduated high school, she said, okay, I know the code. She put herself into the national challenge every year to compete with blind students. She's not that adept at it, but she saw that was kind of her end of grade test for herself every year to see that she was making improvement. And so now she set it aside. She knows how to read it. And she said, now if I lose my vision, I know it'll all come back to me and I don't have to worry about it. So I think even as a little kid, she knew I need this protection. She is a planner. So she kind of put it in there. But our kids they kind of know when they need something. And if they really want something, they can find a way to do it beyond us. So mom didn't have to do anything really. I thought that I did, but I didn't have to do a thing. So I guess all that to say, trust our kids. We can be open with them because we can make it positive when we talk to them and let them know there's nothing wrong with you. Everyone has something that they have to deal with. They might be shy, they might be too outgoing and learn how to stop talking, or they become a podcaster. So we have a reason to talk.
So I'll be honest, I have not hardly asked any of the questions that were on my list, but I
Sorry.
feel like we definitely covered it. No, 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 it's me. I'm not linear. I will go all over the place. It's totally my fault. But I know that we discussed off recording that there is a hot button issue going on right now, a lot of panic. Several parents have asked me about, I think right now there are 17 states that have sued the government to dismiss 504 plans for students, and everyone that I know is panicking over the dissolution of the DOE. So you have an amazing new take on it that I just learned about with your videos. Could you tell us why we should not panic and what we should do instead?
I think so. It's not a cut and dry answer, but so what you're referring to are my news updates that I've been doing for the last couple months.
Yes.
And so I'm posting for as long as we need to a weekly update on special education news and the changes in the Department of Education. So right now we know, and I don't know how much you've kept up with all the changes. We know the department is down to bare bones. We are seeing the funding for special education, and McMahon just stated last week that the funding is not going away. It is protected. It's going over to HHS, so the Health and Human Services, by June 30th. They have 120 staff that are going to be overseeing that $15 million that goes to our special education kids. So the money is being guarded well. I like that they have 120 people, because it's not down to just 3 people that are going to be regulating it. The states will still have that funding. The piece that I keep telling parents is your contract is with your local school. What's happening at the federal level does not touch us much. As long as we know that that funding support is still there, then we're still protected. We never have worked with the federal government with our child's IEP or with the 504 plan. We've only worked with our local school. And you have your state guidelines of what you do in case of conflict. You know, you go to your teachers first, your school beyond that. You've got the state level. What the Department of Education changes are intended to do here is to give our states more authority over us, so that when we do have these conflicts and have to go higher than our local school and our local school district, the state has a little more authority now than what they had before. We also still have the legal system. So we have a contract. That 504 plan and the IEP is a contract that we have. Our kids are protected under those contracts. So if you have to bring in legal help, which I strongly discourage at any point, unless you absolutely have to, because I don't know if you're aware of this or not. As soon as you talk to an attorney, the school can no longer work with you. You have to work with your district attorney, and now it's only a legal issue, and you've lost all connection with your local school. So I highly recommend never going that far unless you're in a situation. If you have to, do it. But if there's any way around it, you don't want to do that, because you want to continue in your local school and you want to continue working with that local school. And the benefit of that is your children have peers that are local peers. You're not having to go to another school somewhere else. You know, if we can resolve this conflict, and 9 times out of 10, you're going to be able to do that with proper guidance there. You can get the team on your side or you on their side. Maybe your expectations are off. You know, so sometimes it is on us that we're coming in with the wrong mindset.
Agreed.
But yeah, and we have to recognize that. Again, we are mamas, mamas and papas. We have a few out there too.
Yeah.
But I'm encouraged by what I'm seeing with these changes, and what I keep going back to is it's a process. Congress has not signed off on anything yet. So the money is protected. We know that's not going away. If they are changing a 504 plan to something else, that's a different story. It might just be, and sometimes we have to look between the lines of what they're saying. It might be that, excuse me, 504 is going to change divisions, but that's not changing a protection from our child. Because we have kids who can't survive without accommodations. No one out there has said we're going to take those accommodations away. So if the terminology is changing, that's totally different on that. So, and I have seen nothing in what I've searched through, but I would caution you. I had a call the other day of someone saying that the current administration has shut down the suicide hotline. That was a scare on social media. It hasn't been shut down. It's still there. If you need it, call them. They're still there. They're answering the phones.
Yeah.
But that shows what happens on social media. I keep reading things that have no foundation.
Yeah.
And so you want to go to the Department of Education website. You want to go to the government websites. You want to look at your reliable sources, as we teach all our kids to use, and confirm the good or the bad that you're reading so that you know whether this is really happening or is this speculation. I went into Grok. I don't know if you use X. Grok is their AI model there. And I like Grok because it'll pull actual websites and actual tweets from people. I don't know if they're called tweets now because it's X. I don't know what it's called on the platform now. Post, I guess. I don't know. But
Yeah.
but it'll give you a summary of what's happening. So just out of fun, go on there sometime and just ask, what's happening with the Department of Education. Grok will
Yeah.
come back and tell you, and it'll give you all the resources that it used to get that information. But I wrote back to it and because everything was speculation. It's like, you just gave me a whole list of posts that people made. Where's the foundation of what it came from? It was like, you're absolutely right. There's no foundation for any of this.
Yeah.
So then I looked at the actual postings that are happening, and they've been a little bit quiet. I don't know if you've kept up with it or not. HHS has said that they're going to do weekly updates on how the states are doing in this change. And they were great with the first one, but then we haven't heard anything for the last 2 weeks. So I'm waiting for the one from this week. Hopefully will come out so we can see where they are. But everything was in line 2 weeks ago. So maybe that just means there's been no changes.
Maybe no news is good news.
Well, I'm kind of thinking that it's why I didn't do a post last week, because there was no change of anything, good or bad. There was just nothing. So.
Yeah, I think that is probably key information for 2025 in general is stop believing Facebook.
Please.
And I know. And when my family, we are on opposite sides of the table on almost everything. But when they come and they say anything, my first question is, did you read this from a news source or did you see this on social media? And almost 99% of the time it's from social media.
Yeah.
And I love that is keeping you into current events, but you have to fact check anything that is on the internet. But I think that's been a fight for the last 25 plus years.
So. Well, it really has been. And, you have all these speculations, but it sells. And so, whether you're on YouTube, whether you're on, I go on Instagram more than Facebook. I'm on Facebook because I know that's where my audience is. But it's too much of a black hole for me. If I go on there, I'll spend too much time. So
me too.
So for me, with an ADHD brain, Instagram, I can surf through really quick and then turn it off. Facebook, I can't. I'm hooked. I'm a hook for too long. But if you look at those, they're sensational. And if we watch an advertisement on TV for this new product that sounds too good to be true, we're not going to buy it, right? Why are we buying it on the social media post? It's the same type thing. It's a product distribution. They're growing their channels and they're following because they're posting the stuff. But look behind it all. Look for the facts. Don't even get into the conversations in their comment section, because you're only going to get slanted answers either side, depending on where you're coming from. You're going to get it from both sides. Just look for where the facts. And I'm hoping these videos that I'm putting out are balanced. I'm trying to show both sides, and just to encourage everyone, let's just kind of watch. We're not at a point of no return. Again, the funding is taken care of. Congress has done nothing. There was a leak of the proposed budget that came out a couple weeks ago, and a lot of panic came from that crisis hotline, the suicide hotline, that came from that leak. And I was able to trace that down to, there's one little piece of funding for children calling the suicide hotline that the budget's going to change on. That's the proposed budget. Now, it hasn't come to a vote yet. This is for 26. But when I looked at that, I thought, all right, so how many children are calling a suicide hotline? there might be that they're going to put that into another category that's covering children because of their age. Maybe that's the part that they're doing. I don't know. I couldn't find the answer to that, but I didn't see anything that really was a red flag that we're going to lose this hotline. But that's what the sensationalism was, that no one can do this. And this was a friend from Germany that called me and said he was getting calls because the US had shut down the hotline. It's like, no,
Wow.
you can talk to them, yes, but tell them they can also call the hotline in the US.
Yeah. I know. I hate that we even have to add that part in, but it's like, I don't want
Yeah,
people,
but
I want people to pay attention. And honestly, since the
yes,
beginning of the year, I have taken a step back from news as much as I was involved. And maybe that's the wrong take, I don't know, but to protect my own sanity.
we need those breaks. We need those breaks. Yeah. It's and I don't watch the news much at all. It's I was and I would watch both sides. Like I
Yeah.
would watch Fox and CNN because I'm going to hear inflated on both sides and then I can
Yeah.
kind of try to find what's in the middle between the two. So I've just started going to the government websites and what are their press releases saying and looking at that. And I feel like I'm getting a better view of what's happening by going to the source. So if you hear something,
Yeah.
dig a little deeper, I guess would be the best part there. And don't lose any sleep over this right now. There's nothing out there that I'm seeing that is saying we're going to lose anything. If anything, we might have more strength to it. The piece I'm waiting on from McMahon's office is as we move to the states, because if all this gets signed off, then our states will have more power over education. How is that going to be monitored? It's going to be the authority that's making sure that each of the states
Yeah.
are doing what they're doing.
And those updates are on your Water Prairie website so that people can tune into those and so that I can subscribe as well.
So the updates are on the site. You'll see a link in the top corner to my YouTube channel. So you can go there. So those are just on YouTube. And the other thing I just have on YouTube is I'm doing a series of shorter videos on the just understanding IEPs and special education. I've just released the first few at this point, but they are coming out slowly as I have time in my schedule to do extra. And I have a whole series on ADHD that I'm going to be working on. And I think what I'm going to do with that series is look at individual accommodations and what might help, but I also want to dig into executive function skills more and some of the pieces of that to help us understand as parents how we can help support our children more.
I love that. That's wonderful. And of course, I will link all of that in the show notes.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So I have taken more of your time than I anticipated. And I literally could do this all day. I could talk all day, but
I'm the same way.
I want to be respectful of your time. I know you're a very busy lady. So other than people connecting with you, is there anything that you would want to leave people with other than fact checking in 2025?
Well, a big piece that I would like to say to your audience for you is I don't know if they are aware of this or not, but podcasts are hard to grow. And so, listeners, if you can go on to the platform that you're listening on, actually, Apple would be the best one for her, and leave a review about it. Could be this episode, it could be any episode that you want. That will help her get in front of more people who are looking for this. So, so give her a 5-star rating and leave her a review for the Chaos and Caffeine podcast.
Thank you for that. And also for the Water Prairie Chronicles while you're there.
Sure. I won't say no to that.
Tonya, thank you so much for your time. I think I, as usual, needed a lot of reminders that we have covered today.
Well, thank you. I thoroughly enjoyed this. Thank you.
And that's a wrap, my friend. Can we just pause for a second and appreciate the powerhouse that is Tonya Wollum? Seriously. This woman is out here breaking down walls, building bridges, and giving us the tools we need so our neurodivergent kids don't just get shoved into the system. They actually get supported in it. If you are walking away today with your shoulders a little higher and your mama bear claws feeling just a little bit sharper, that's Tonya's magic at work. Do yourself a favor and head on over to waterprairie.com and dive into her world, her podcast, her resources, her advocacy. This is the stuff that keeps us fueled when the coffee wears off and the IEP meetings keep coming. And hey, if this episode spoke to your soul or made you laugh through the chaos, share it with another ADHD parent who needs to hear that they are not alone in this wild, wild ride. Tonya, thank you for showing up with your heart and your fire today. We are so here for it. Until next time, parents, keep the caffeine hot, the chaos embraced, and remember, we've got this.